everybody. Welcome to the Truth Will Set You Free show. This show is brought to you by TLBTV and the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm your host, Linda Diane Wattley, and you know how I feel about my guests. But before I even start talking about this long resume of this man, we have to do a shout out for our veterans.
That's right.
Thank you so much for serving in the United States Navy.
Thank you very much. I was honored to do and we'll do it all over again.
Oh, that is so awesome. The Navy. I have a couple of questions there, but anyway, I want people to know about Dr. Elvis Epps, right?
Yes, ma'am. You got it right.
He has a resume that I could actually do 2 shows. He's a busy man. He told me he wasn't busy. He taking care of graduation, but 3 weeks later, he's still busy.
At the story of my life.
And I like to give you an idea about him. He is a very powerful man in the world in the sense of great leadership. He has chosen education to be his foundation in the world, even though he don't talk much about his spiritual base. I feel like, based on what I understand about him, he is actually a person that's in a ministry, in the educational business world, where he could talk to people without being religious, but yet hold on to his spirituality and make a difference in this world. So that makes him an asset. That's
right. Public school setting, 25 years.
25 years.
That's right.
He is a father with 2 beautiful daughters. Congratulations on the youngest daughter. What's her name?
Her name is Lauren. She graduated.
Yay. I know you're proud. He's been married for 28 years.
29.
Excuse me.
Yep.
And he loves his family. And I was wanting to ask you, when you described your daughter, you said she's like her mom, the woman of Proverbs 31. What did you mean by that?
She's definitely focused on what she wants to do with her life. My daughter, I have 2. The one just recently graduated. She knows who she is, and she doesn't define who she is or where she's going based on the moral majority. She walks by faith. Her steps are ordered in God's word, and you can find her doing her thing on her time when she's ready. And she has never been one of those caught up in the crowd. And if it's not going in the direction she's going in, she just wished them a fine farewell and wished them well on their journeys. But she will still continue on the course that God has placed her on. And she no shame, embarrassment about it at all. So she's a wonderful young lady.
And see, that's why I wanted to share your family, because they mean so much to you.
Absolutely.
You walk through them and you go out into the world don't come into you.
That's right. That's right.
That's beautiful. You know your place. And I found it interesting to learn that you were shy at one time, but yet you are this amazing speaker.
Yeah, matter of fact, I had the personality of just being quiet. I wanted to be and this was in my early 20s. It wasn't until I met my wife and she was actively involved in youth ministry. I was in the Navy at the time. I love to talk, but not in front of people. So there was an opportunity to share, to witness, to give a 5-minute nugget at church. And so I did that over 30 years ago. And that started my speaking business. And then from there, I started working in youth ministry for over 20 some years and just going, and then got into education and see what God has done.
It's amazing. And I would like to let them realize that you really invested in yourself. You are highly educated, which I respect and honor in a person, especially when they use it in the manner that you do. He has his bachelor's and master's degree in educational leadership from the University of Central Florida.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And you got your doctor's degree in organizational leadership from Nova Southwestern University?
Southeastern. Nova Southeastern.
Yes. And he is passionate about serving and coaching others to live a productive and abundant life.
Yes, ma'am.
And I also like the fact that you just about sat in every chair in the educational system. I mean, principal, assistant principal, district leadership. I mean, it's just endless. Right now, you're principal at what school was that?
Lake Worth High School in Lake
Yeah,
Worth, Florida, which is part of the Palm Beach School District.
right. And I was wondering, what was that experience like going on Oprah's radio network?
Matter of fact, it was rewarding when I first got the call. I was like, is this a joke? She said, no, her name was Rita or something. And somebody had told her about me. And so I went on to talk about bullying. Believe it or not, it was about girls who bully, especially in the middle school setting. And it turned out to be rewarding and refreshing, and I really, really enjoyed that. And Holly Robinson and her husband, Rodney Pete, invited me to be on their show, and I went on there twice. The first time I went on, it was recorded, and then they played it back. The second time they asked for me to come back, Rita called me back again and said, the ratings were great. They want to know if you can come back. And I said, I definitely will. So the second time I went on, I said, okay, I'm back. So thank you guys for having me back on your show, your XM radio show. And she said, okay, last time we recorded this, but this time we're gonna go live. And we want calls from around the world, and anybody who's listening to our show to call in and ask you any questions about bullying, a child, or raising a kid. They call me the child whisperer. And so, it was a great thing. And so I had a wonderful time. And then I went on to do 2 more shows with a couple of Oprah other guests on the show. So I ended up doing 4 of her show radio programs.
So what was they basically interested in that they knew that you knew about?
And it was child development. One of the things I've spent over 25 years in the public education setting, but more than 30 years in youth ministry and work with the youth. So understanding how they think, their development, understanding the minds of our young ladies when they're developing, and the mind of our boys. So they knew that was my forte, and knowing how that I've put programs together on youth ministry and mentoring our young boys. Also work with their fathers on how the role of men in the home, in the church, and in the community. So it would have been counterproductive to work with just the children without including the man or the men in these young boys' life. So they knew that as my forte, and just being out there with the young people, knowing how to connect and just keeping it real.
So what would you say is the bottom line to why the girls were being bullies?
One of the things they go through is a combination of things, and with over 25 and 30 years, that it's sometimes can go on recognition. Sometimes they don't like the new kid. They like to talk about their clothes. They like to pick on them. They like to talk down on them. And sometimes it's just an environment in which they are brought up. And it doesn't take much to identify a girl once you meet the parents, and it determines like, oh, now I see why she acts like that. Some of the other girls you will see is bullying. The new thing is now in education is not necessarily the face-to-face, in-your-face bullying. They do have some words, but it's the social media bullying, where they'll take your face and they'll put comments next to it, and then they'll share it with 1,000, 2,000 people in a matter of 3 seconds. So, and that's the taunting that keeps going. So there are new laws on the book that talks about cyberbullying and how it has just as much psychological impact and negativity in the student's life that it does face-to-face. So our girls like the attention.
But the boys, it's not too many of them?
Well, if the boys would do it, but their bullying is a little different. They could have a disagreement, and sometimes if a boy stands up, then it's over. And not to even categorize or put people in certain categories, but when a young lady has a disagreement, it can last for years and years. And right now, even in high school, I have young ladies who have disagreements and even want to fight. And I said, wait a minute, you just got here. Why are you dealing with this? Well, it started when we were in the 7th grade. We used to be friends. But then her friend told me she was talking about her, about each other. So somebody in the middle played them against each other. Where the young boys may have a disagreement, squash it right away and move on. And they have this understanding that I don't like you, you don't like me, or we're cool with each other. We just know where we stand. Young ladies, it's a tough one. When you find an answer to that, you let me know.
You know, I was kind of tickled at you because sometime back in your life, you felt like your leadership skills and training from the Navy prepared you to be a principal.
Oh yeah, just the leadership component of it, because what people often ask me about, well, how do you like dealing with those children? And I say, it's really not the children, it's the adults. When I was 21 years old, I was thrown into leadership, leaving college, 21 years old. Now I'm in charge of 85 young men in the Navy, from boot camp and then to get to the ship. Then I get some duties where I'm in a Navy nuclear ship with nuclear weapons and all kind of stuff. Here I am, 21, 22, 23, in charge of this vessel, like officer of the deck and petty officer of the watch. It was my job. And so I had to grow up quickly. And one of the things I really had to do is understand who I can count on in times of trouble. The same leadership I take to my school and everywhere I go. Who are the people that you can really count on when things are tough? When it's time to have the boots hit the ground? Who can you count on? And one of the things I do in leadership is, with all my 250 people on my staff, I have to assess on a scale of 1 to 5, which ones are my high flyers, which ones are my eagles, and which ones are necessarily not the chickens, but which ones are need some help. Because some of the leadership strategies I have to use, some people are not ready for that. And I have to know which method to use with them. And not to switch subjects, one of the things I did learn from the military that I learn now, that there's a combination of different personalities and generational differences. I have a teacher as young as 22 and I have one as old as 68. And so how do you approach them? You have to know the thinking. You have to know the thinking. And so some of them have multiple personalities. You don't know which ones until you open your mouth and you, hey, good morning, how are you doing? Or a situation can cause them to be ugly or pleasant.
Wow. So when you was doing what you was doing in the Navy, in contrast to being a principal,
yes, ma'am.
I recall you found that it was more of a challenge than it appeared to be. You know what I mean? It's like you said it was kind of like, oh, I have my training in the service. This is going to really play into my position as a principal. But then you start learning that that position was far beyond just being a principal. You had to really build that foundation.
Yeah, one of the things in the military, if you and I work together and say I was your supervisor, I could give you a direct order. You may not like it, but by me giving you an order in the military, you would have to do it. It's different like that even on my job working with civilians and working in the school setting, because some will do it right way because they love what they do. They see being in education as a ministry. The other people, they will go and check their union book and they will check the personnel. Do I have to do what the principal said? And you're like, wait a minute. I just asked you to do something like, wear your ID badge or come to work on time or stand at the door and greet the kids. Some people will welcome that. There are some education around the world, across the nation, won't welcome that. And so one thing I did learn that helped me in the military is how to give strong, be firm with what I say, stand behind my word, and mean what I say. And so I can do that without having soft skin, because leadership, especially in the public school setting, could be any job. It's not, you can't have thin skin. It's not for cowards. You have to be strong. You have to be firm. You have to be loving yet firm in your leadership.
And another thing that you also revealed too is actually when you care in the capacity that you care, you have learned that even though you don't realize it or say it, but you had to somehow become a businessman.
Oh, you have. Matter of fact, when you go through the schools of educational leadership, there are no courses you take for business leadership. The reason why I did not get my doctorate in ed leadership, because I already knew enough to run a school. And so I knew enough with the ed leadership to become a superintendent. The piece that was missing is that business organizational leadership piece. That's why when I got my doctorate, I didn't want it in ed leadership because I already had a master's in that. The organization piece covered all the business leader, your Peter Drucker, your Singay, talk about Warren Bennis, talk about John Maxwell. How do they do things? Stephen Covey, talk about Jim Collins, Good to Great. Those are our textbooks on what is General Motors doing to get those people moving in the right direction. A lot of principals do not think along those lines because they think they have the personality. If they get them a chance to work with them, they will move, but not necessarily. One of the things I had to understand is which leadership style goes with the situation. And in doing so, I am so equipped and I'm able to get this thing. And that's why a lot of people are calling me, because they like the business model. So when I do speak to them, I don't speak about, well, at the school we do this. No, I talk about the product, our teachers. Because you can start a school without a principal, but you can't start it without a teacher and students. So my job is to get them moving in the right direction, the law of momentum, get on the train, everybody sit in the right seat, Jim Collins. We want to make sure that they're moving and moving and moving in the right direction. So that's why earlier I talked about having the right vision to match the mission and find the right people to get the job done. So not only are you on the right bus, you must be in the right seat, all looking in the right direction. So I don't want anybody on my bus gazing out the window. We have to be attentive, and that's a military practice there. All eyes are front, and we need to make sure we keep that as our mission and drive every day.
Well, you know, like in different situations, in different schools, I don't know if you experienced it, but you could tell that the schools needed more out of the community.
Yes, they do.
Is there any political aspect to being a principal also?
Yeah, you have to be political. Everything we do is political. You got to know how to, like I said earlier, understand the personalities, the generational differences. Even when I do a staff development or training, I have to think along the lines of these people in their late 50s up. How do they think? How do they want to get this information? My younger people, my younger millennials and generation, my millennials, they are pretty sharp. And I have some generation X right after the millennials. They're the X generation. They're very innovative. They're creative, and they look for opportunities for growth and development and appreciation. And they will chase the paper. See, I don't need to know your generation, but I know my generation. When my parents and I came, we were looking for longevity. This new generation could care less about 20, 30 years. They don't want to watch it retirement. They just want to chase the papers, and when they feel appreciated, and they want to know how they think. The older generation, sometimes like you're 46, 47, 48, they've been in the game so long, they want to stick around. And so you have to understand, okay, if they want this information, how do they get it? Sometimes they want face-to-face. They want the assurance that their job is safe. They want to know their job is safe. For my other young people, they want to know their job is safe, but I like them. They're valued in the company. And so it goes with everyone. So it's just, you just have to know how to do it. But coming from a business background, not a business background, but a business mindset, and my focus for what I do, those are the determining factors that how do we move this organization? And it's not just me. One of the first things principals have to do is to get your assistant principal and leadership team in order, because they're your voice. So you can stand on that podium and preach, talk, and give all the direction and motivation, but if they go back to the meeting and say, oh, that was just him talking, here's what we're going to do. Y'all don't have to listen to him. Then we have a problem. We have a problem, but not on my watch.
I know you got a serious watch there. I was also saying that you said one of your main concerns is making sure that people felt safe at school. And this was even before all the shooting and stuff really got out of hand. You felt that they had to feel safe.
Yes.
On campus or in school.
Yeah, matter of fact, two things I always say and always preach. If a school or environment or a home is not safe and orderly, nothing's going to take place. And you can put 5 people in a car, 2 people in a car, or even walking down the mall. If it's not safe and if it's not orderly, nothing's going to take place. So that holds true throughout my campus. One of the things that we're looking at and is looking at the socio-emotional learning aspect, looking at our youth, our children, our young adults, and our adults. What do they do when they're feeling depressed or sad or suicidal ideations or being bullied or not feeling 100%? It is my job as principal to make sure I address that on campus. Not only address, but make sure I address it quickly and not put it off for someone else to handle. But I do have professionals who are trained in this area. I don't try to handle everything on my own. I handle what I can, but I have professionals who can come in and address these issues with our children. And some of the setbacks we have, like I had a teacher whose son was shot and killed in February. And she's a sweet lady and she worked hard, and it came all of a sudden, and she hadn't been back to work. But we understand through prayer and patience and contacting her, letting us know it's going to be okay. but she emotionally, no, she's not, can't function. And just recently, last month, as we preparing for state assessments, one of our outstanding students, her sister was shot and murdered. And so having the support on campus and supporting the community where this young lady, not only my student, but her parents, her mom, her parents can go to and also get the support, because a lot of them just don't know where to turn when they're thinking, I got to bury my child. Who did this? Where is the person? I want justice. So they're not thinking rationally. But my job as principal is to go beyond the walls of school.
That's why I was getting ready to ask you, do you take your work home with you?
It's always on my mind. If you ask my wife, she'll tell you always. It's always constantly. And so we're doing these things. So we want to make sure that when we do things, we want to make sure that there's a cutoff time. And she's one who will remind me in a heartbeat that you're home. So put all this information away and just stay focused on at home. So I really try to take my hat off around 4:35. There's some evenings I have to work late, and put on my husband and daddy hat. And so around 5 o'clock, because it must be some kind of system of means for separating what I do at work. But I do have a high number of 95% of my students are on free or reduced. So a lot of them go to bed hungry. A lot of them go to bed sleeping in cars, not even a bed, but some are homeless. And so there are some issues that I face and are constantly on my mind and in my prayers daily. And, where are they? And some in some abusive situations. Some are running away. Some are pregnant in the 9th grade and don't know what to do, and the parents don't know what to do with them. So there are a lot of factors that I look at when I'm talking about the social emotional aspect of leadership. It's more than just data, looking at test scores. It's looking at the human being piece of it. Like I said earlier, if it's not safe or orderly, nothing's going to happen.
So, like what's going on in America today, I don't know how much it affects your school, but it's the teachers don't seem to get the respect that they once had gotten years ago. It's like they don't take care of them financially, their benefits. It's like they just on pins and needles. They can't actually teach now because they have to parent children, discipline children, and the responsibilities that they have given them without paying them for their services. How do you get through to them to keep them on the uphill?
Yeah, and right here in the school district where I'm working here in South Florida, I think it pays quite well. Us teachers a starting salary, and that's all subjective, if you know what I mean. There are some school districts that cannot afford to pay school districts. We're the 11th largest school district in the nation, so starting and it's highly competitive with the neighboring districts. So they want to pay well. They want to pay the administrators more than average, the national average. But we also look at how do you keep them encouraged, because when you live in an area, say New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., you may get teacher salary, but you can't afford to live there because the cost of living is so high. So our school district has an active role when they meet with community leaders and saying, what can we do to partner with housing authorities to make sure we bring in top candidates? What discount can you give teachers when they live here? You give firefighters and you give police officers discounts. Why not teachers? So we're working on that. And that was one of the initiative strategic teams that I initially set on 2 years ago when I first got here, is what kind of branding, what kind of message can we do to lure teachers here? And what can we do to keep them here? Because of the cost of living can be relatively high compared to probably where they came from. So we encourage teachers through discounts. And one of the great things I can always say that the businesses in the area provide wonderful discounts for a lot of the teachers. And they have to know that. And I have to make sure that as principal, I keep that at the forefront. I put in my emails. I let them know there's some discounts. So when we have a day when there's no kids, teachers, are able to afford and really enjoy some of these activities. And sometimes we use it as field trips. So the teachers can go there and just enjoy the day and enjoy education. So it's not like I'm just sitting there, drive. You have to do. We have to make sure that they're comfortable and they really enjoy their job and get back to the why they got into education. and leave the rest of the politics and the legislating and the policies and the state statutes to me to interpret and then to pass on to them.
So how do you encourage a child, especially a child who's been abused at home, neglected, not taken care of, that they need to get their education no matter what, when the parents are not encouraging them? How do you get through to them? Because people look for their parents to tell them which way to go.
Yeah, matter of fact, it's one of those tall orders. And I say if you're at some of your middle income and up, you will probably get a lot of that. But since earlier I told you we had 95% free or reduced, and in my school, 80% of my students have some kind of Caribbean or South American connection. So 50% Hispanic and 30% Haitian Creole at my school. And so when you come and talk, there are some cultures that really put education as priority one, and there are some who come to America and they put getting a job priority one. So my job is, how do you convince a kid who came to America to get a job to send money back to families, say in South America, to come to school? It's tough. I'm just going to say it's tough. And our locating these kids, convincing the parents that this is best for them, and sometimes we don't win all cases. We don't win, and some just try to drop out and go to work, and we find some, but some have some hardship situations where the parents insist that the kid go to work with them and not go to school.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot for the 14, 15-year-old. And so our attendance rate here in this district for high school is around 9%, absentee rate, I mean. But for the elementary, it's around 32%, because when the parents move, they take the kids with them because the kids can't stay home by themselves. So that number tends to be higher overall in this school district. But we always look for ways to reduce attendance, be it home situation. What can we do to help you? It's clothes. Like at my school, we have a uniform policy, and that reduces the trying to keep up with the Wattleys, you know, buying all the latest fashions and the $800 shoes. You know, you're Wattley, right? So keeping up with you, it's going to be a tough one. Not the Epps, because the Epps is being a uniform. And
wow. So what's a happy day at work for you?
The happy days when I sit around, during lunch and walk in the hallways and speak to the kids and have them explain their why to me. And matter of fact, it's so funny that breakfast starts at 7 in the morning. The first class starts at 7:30. Well, the first bell at 7:20. But you can really see how much they really love your school when you're going home and it's 5 o'clock and you still have a lot of kids hanging around, and you just stop it. Instead of going to your car, I would go over and talk to them. How was your day? Oh, I loved it. And why are you guys still around here? We got out at 2:45. Well, we just love being here, socializing. There's not much to do at home. And so we try to provide after-school tutoring, sporting programs, activity clubs, a lot of tutoring is going on. And some of the students just want to be on campus just to a safe place. And so that's a happy day, and that's really, really enjoying it. And then when I talk to the teachers, they know they have the autonomy to think beyond the walls of the classroom. I want them to be innovative and creative. I want them to be problem solvers. And those are one of the areas of 21st century strategies on helping our young people be ready for college and career. But I also had to help my teachers think along those lines. You can't teach what you don't know. So once you know what it is, then the teachers think along those lines. And I said, look, you come up with it. It's my job to help find some money to make it happen in the classroom.
Well,
so, okay.
You did that commencement address speech very well. How did you get to the bottom line the way you did? I mean, you was like straight to the point. You was like.
That was my last one. One of the things I don't wait till the end of the year. We speak from the first week of school, and we speak throughout the year. And so the principles that I share with them is what I've been sharing with them all year.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's no joke. Matter of fact, when we get back to school, I start my daddy-daughter talks. I start my young men of distinction talks. I bring in speakers. We have mentoring going on. And I have some really keep it real talks with them about life, because it's rough out here. And I don't ever want them to think somebody's going to call them in the morning and say, hey, you didn't come to school. We have to call you. I mean, you didn't come to work, or you didn't come, you're a freshman in college. Don't expect someone to call you on the phone. So I keep it real, because growing up in Mississippi, that's how my mom and dad kept it with me. So
you definitely did. I just want to share some of what you said.
Yes,
you told them, excuse me, take responsibility for your life.
Absolutely.
Know who you are. Be careful of the company you keep. Remain humble. Practice gratitude. Make sure you're kind to one another and
That's
to
right.
yourself. And you said, let people judge you by your character.
That's right. Not by the color of your skin.
Wow.
That's right.
I mean, you gave them something that they could recall. That's what I shared with you, because you do that, you'll be able to study and have a direction.
That's right. Matter of fact, and there were a total of 15. There are 15 principles. I took the 7 that really apply to them, because I'm in the process of writing a short book just for my high school and college students that include the 15 principles to live by. And so it's going to be super, super impressive. Now, one of the areas in the speech, one of the seniors, I told them, you're going to have to wake up in the morning, get off your butts, and don't be lazy, and let's be hungry. Let's go get a job. And 2 of the students, but one saw me Monday morning. Graduation was that Wednesday. He came to school, went Monday morning the next week. Dr. Epps, he had on a shirt and tie. He was dressed up. He said, I just had to find you to tell you. He said, what? He said, I was listening to your graduation speech, and it made a lot of sense. He said, I got up early Monday morning, and I got dressed, and I went in for an interview, and I got a job right there on the spot. He said, I was so excited. I thought about you all the way over. He said, I had to come find you because I listened to what you said during graduation.
That's right.
And he said, I remember. And another young man said right after the graduation, he said, I remember what you said. He said, we went out to eat after graduation. He said, while I was at the restaurant, I asked the manager, I just graduated. I'm highly qualified. I know I can do the job. Do you have an opening? And then he said, yeah, matter of fact, we were looking for someone. When can you interview? He said, I'm finished with high school. I can interview now. He ended up getting a job as well. So
that's encouraging.
They were paying attention. And so
that's encouraging.
Yes, it was.
You went through the whole school year and you didn't stop. You got them up on the stage and you still went done with them.
No, because those are my children. And, you're releasing 600 to the world. And you hope and pray that whoever they meet loves and cherishes them and take care of them the same we did at my school.
That's really amazing. I knew that was a special speech when I listened to it.
Thank you.
You just gave me 2 testimonies, witnesses of how truth makes a difference.
Well, it sets you free. You have to be honest.
Truth is, you can't beat truth.
Yeah, you can't.
It manifests itself, whether you do it or not. It's going to manifest itself.
That's right.
It's so phenomenal. But I still like to know, how did you come out of the Navy and decide to go into education?
Well, I did not. It's my wife who planted that seed, because when I went to the University of Central Florida, I was looking at some areas of education, but not to teach. And one of the things they did, I was 29 years old, 28, 29. The University of Central Florida was insisting that I do some internships. And I said, okay. And I remind you, I'm married, have a house, I got a mortgage. And they said, oh, you have to do an internship. I said, nah, I can't. I said, for how long? He said, 6 months. I said, 6 months? Well, how am I supposed to work and pay for keep my mortgage? Well, you just have to make it work. So I'm like, no. So anyway, she planted some seeds and we worked some things out, and I was able to graduate with my degree. And then just apply for the school district here in Central Florida at the time when I lived in the Orlando area. But one of the things is they had a hiring freeze for 2 years. And then when it opened, I got a call. I was working for Westinghouse at the time in the warehouse as one of their technicians. And all of a sudden I get a call. I'm sitting with my uniform on, and I've been, welding and doing some things. I said, well, can you come in for an interview? I said, well, I need to change. He said, no, come as you are. And so I got a job right there on the spot. And you would not believe where my first job was.
No way.
I was a teacher at the juvenile detention center. Because kids who are incarcerated or in hope, they have to go to school as well. And you talking about scared on my first day, because you go through this front, you can't get in without them buzzing you through. Then you get in, then they slam the little door behind you. I've never been inside a jail or facility. I've never went to visit, so I didn't know you have to go through all this. So they had to close the door behind me before they opened the second door. So that was shut. Then they had to buzz this one open. And that one had to slam shut. So there's two doors. And then to go in the classroom, they had to buzz me in. And so when I was in there, there are 60 students and 2 teachers. I'm the new teacher, dressed just like this, but had a tie on. And I got to thinking, I'm like, this is not your typical classroom. So there's no way if these 60 students decide they want to have a riot, I can't get out, because you have to buzz wherever these people were to let you know that, hey, this is Elvis Epps, I need to leave, and they will have to buzz you out. And I'm like, be nice, be kind. But it turned out to be a ministry in itself. I met so many hurting students, so many students who are looking for love, looking for a father figure, looking for someone who would just affirm their beauty, their intelligence, affirm their existence, because they didn't know what it meant to be loved by an adult because of who they are, not what they can trade off. And so those are the type of things that for 6.5 years I was in alternative ed and loved it. And I said, wow, what a mission. It was a mission.
You also said this was your calling. You feel like
Yes,
this was your calling?
Yep. And that's why I just said it was what a mission, because to be in education, to really go that extra distance, to be that caring person, it has to be a calling. Because when you're talking about finances, when I first started teaching, I think it was $18,000 a year. But I'm talking about 25 years ago, $18,000. People were looking at it like, what? But think about it, that was the increase, because some people prior to that were 13, 14, 15, 16. When I came in, it was 18 in 1993 here in Florida. But one of the things you have to understand is your why. And I share with a lot of people, and I share with my wife who sits in some of my trainings. If people don't understand your who, then it's hard to explain your why. And because God is my who I serve, my why is easy to explain. Why? Because it's in my walk, it's in my talk, it's in my leadership style. So the business world and Simon Sinek and the rest of them say, oh, start with why. Not us. When you're looking for truth, you go to the truth, and that is our who, and that is our God, our Lord and Savior who we serve. So that's our who. Our who determines our why, and also help us with our what, and that's our purpose. So when people understand your who, it is why, and they can see what you do, and it's very clear. But you have to walk by faith. You have to do it, and it has to be a calling.
It has to be a calling.
It has to be a calling.
Do you feel that most teachers, do they see it as a calling, or do they see it as a profession or just a paycheck?
Well, that's what you just said, those two questions. What I normally do is like to survey. I want feedback. So I do ask the teachers simple questions. Why do you teach? Is it because you're looking for, will this help you get to the next level? Is it because you couldn't find anything else to do? And the last one, is it a calling? And about 70% of the people would say it's a calling. Now, what they say and what I actually see are two different things. So I like to see, are we practicing what we're talking about? And is it culturally embedded throughout my campus? I don't expect everyone to have this, but but they follow my lead. Like John Maxwell said, everything rises and falls in leadership. So if they see that I care a lot, and this is my priority with social emotional learning, not only among the students, but the teachers who go through a lot of emotional stress and distress. It's my job to make sure that I take care of them and they know I care. And so these are the type of things we look at. But to make sure it's a calling, you can tell those teachers. You can walk on any campus and you can tell those teachers that it's a calling.
Well, one thing you can say for sure is leadership is a very powerful position.
Yes, it is.
I mean, when you look at each president that America has had,
mm-hmm.
and the different impacts that it has had on individual lives, even people who are not even into politics.
That's right. Uh-huh.
It's like a spray. They send out a spray.
Yes.
And it's going to touch your life.
Yeah. And that's that trickle down effect. You will find what you're looking for. If you represent negativity, then it will surround you. And people do as they see, not as they hear from you. And so if they see you acting a fool, then they know they can join up with you. And you cannot call them on it for the simple fact that how can you call me on being a fool when you act a fool every day? But when you walk by faith and you understand that you are a leader of a person of good quality, good character, a person of integrity and honor. And one of the things I always love to say, a person of hope. A young man doesn't have to necessarily live in my neighborhood, but if they said that, Dr. Epps, you shared your story, that you grew up poor, your dad had a 5th grade education, your mom had a 10th grade, they started working, your mom started having babies when she was 13 and she was 23 when she had me, and I was her 8th child and she was only 23. And yet, through all of that, you still made it? I said, yes, I still made it. This is why I always share my stories, because they can relate to me. I don't hold my tongue back. That's why I call it my keeping it real talk. And so they can identify that this man has walked through the valley of the shadow of death with me, and he knows what I'm going through. And I can, they know I relate.
So during that time of your life, you was a child, that young, do you remember what sustained you?
One of the things that sustained me was a praying mom. And the second piece was a loving brother. I have an older brother who's 11 months older than I am. 11 months. He and I are best friends today. The third piece was surrounding myself with positive teachers. I had Mr. Hollis, who's my band director, who taught me how to play the saxophone. I was in the band in middle school and high school. Then when I got in high school, I had Miss Posey Smith, who was 5 feet 1 at that, and she insisted that we go to college. I remember one day, I was senior in high school, I had no desire, I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm talking about 6 months before graduation. She would come in and she would close those English books and she would hand out applications to college, and she showed us how to fill out applications. She really, really cared. And when I wrote my first book, just celebrating success, and I dedicated it to her, but I also went in and I took her a copy, because one thing she made us memorize was the school address and her home address. She said, you have 2 references, because you're going to always ask you, who can you put down as a reference? And this lady was already in her 26th year of teaching. I'm 17, 18 years old. And she would describe herself as a young, crazy Jewish lady from New York City, who they told, don't go to Mississippi in the 60s, because they would hurt her and kill her down there. But she said it was her calling to come down there, come to Mississippi and make a difference. And that she did. She made a difference. And here I am, graduated almost 40 years ago, and I'm still talking about Miss Smith as if it was yesterday. But she made a lasting impression, and she's part of my other why I teach. When I put a name with a face and a person who really encouraged me, it was Miss Posey Smith, who said, you are going to college. I don't want to hear anything about it. You going. And she was one of those teachers in school that you don't mess with Miss Smith, because everybody loved her and called her Mama Smith. And so that was just a great thing. And I attribute everything that I do to success. I think about the great teacher she was and how much she cared about all of her students. And when I went and knocked on her door, she had retired many years earlier. And I knocked on the door. I said, hey, I'm Elvis. And she said, I know who you are. She's still short to my chest. She said, I know who you are. I said, you remember me after all these years? 20 years had gone by. She said, you sat in the back over to the right-hand side. She said, I know you. You were part of my class clown group. I said, oh, no. I said, I've changed since then. But she remembered me well. And so she is the reason why I do what I do.
You're definitely a servant. You're definitely a leader.
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic family man. And I saw where your mom, you call it porch moments.
Yes.
Her key to success was like, don't burn any bridges, treat people fairly, and always trust God.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
That was written on your heart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got that in high school.
Yes,
And so we matter of fact, elementary and middle school, because mom said, don't run in someone else's house. Give them a chance to come over and just wait and see how many will really come to your house. And she was right. They were excited for you to come over, but they would rarely come to your house. And she said, that's how you determine who your friends are.
Wow.
Yeah, you just give them a chance. Give them a chance to call you. And one thing that really mom would drive her crazy, even at her age now, don't call on the phone and have nothing to say. People, hey, how you doing? I'm fine. What are you up to? I'm not doing right, just watching TV. What are you up to? I don't know. So, it's like you leading out on a conversation when they gave you a call. My mom would hang the phone up and say, hey, I gotta go. I see you have nothing to talk about. So, and it's just one of those things. But those are the principles and values she taught in all of us, is to take care of yourself. And growing up in Mississippi, we always had food. If not, we can put some bread and meal and oil together and egg and make something for somebody to eat. But we were always prepared and looking out for our neighbors.
So if you was to be able to talk to all of teachers in the world, what is it that you would want them to know?
One of the things is they must, every campus, every child, and I want them to hear me, every child on every campus and every community and every church needs a caring adult. And that has made a world of difference. When they know you care, they can come to you about anything, and it's okay to get on them when they drop the ball because they know you love them. It's okay to bridge that gap. But when they know you don't care, they disconnect from you. So you must be a caring adult first. The second thing I would ask, but when a kid comes into a classroom, get to know that child, know their home situation, know exactly what they're going through or probably going through, because I've seen too many times when kids walk in the classroom and take out your books, take out your pencil, take out your paper. And then when Johnny is sluggish, he just went through some kind of abuse at home, getting beat for nothing. He doesn't take out his pencil fast enough. I go to the office. He's like, what's the point? What's the point of even coming to school if I'm going to get the same thing I'm getting at home? So what Johnny does, he skips school or doesn't come to school at all. And so they must be caring. And like I said earlier, if it's not safe or orderly or caring, nothing's going to happen. So that's our calling. That's what a teacher can do. And that comes free. That comes free. You can stand at the door. You can smile at a kid. You can compliment, I see your shoes. And you probably already know that this is probably the second or third or fourth day they've had these same jeans on. It's okay. I like what you're doing. I'm so glad you're here. You made my day. Let me tell you why. And then you can just go on there. So those are the same things that they're often overlooked. And you'll see a lot of that from your secondary. I did a study to try to figure out how does a kid leave a high-performing elementary school and go to a middle school, and it seemed like from 5th grade or 6th grade, and then the kid just drops off. Well, I got a chance to observe the teachers over the years. It took them about 5-6 years. And notice they're not as hands-on, they're not as close to the kids as the elementary, because the elementary will get a set of kids, maybe 25 all year. In middle school, you get about 120, and you can pick from each class which one you want to connect with. So if a teacher could take time to get to know all the kids, and I tell the teacher, I said, I'm only asking you to know 125. I got over 2,600 teachers. So who has the greater challenge, you or me? And I said, just get to know them. And so those are the type things, but you have to care.
So do they have you praying 24/7?
No, they do not. No, they do not. There's a prayer team. There's some prayer warriors. They pray. Trust me, I have a nice group of on my staff who believe in praying on the 4 corners, and they'll go through it and put some olive oil and anoint this and anoint that. But yeah, they do. Matter of fact, we even have some prayer groups with the students, some student-led prayer groups. And one of the things that I started the Young Men of Distinction on campus, and it's a student-led group with student leaders. And so I started the group, and I would sit in every now and then because I really want them to form their norms, expectations for the group. So I attended one meeting, about the 3rd meeting, and I discovered that they don't start their meetings without a word of prayer. And so, I didn't initiate that. That was just an expectation from them. And so they understand their calling and they understand what they do. And so it really helps out. So it's a great campus.
So why do you think the government got so involved with people praying at school or not praying or acknowledging their religion? Why do you think they got so involved?
Well, it could go two ways. Back in I think it was 60, in the early 60s, up in New York, when that ruling was passed by the Supreme Court to take religion out of the school, it wasn't necessarily because I don't even know all the details behind that Supreme Court case. But one of the things we have to look at, there are some people who, say, for instance, if your child, say, is a Baptist and you have somebody who is Muslim teaching your class, is it fair to your child that this guy's using the Quran and speaking the Quran, what his personal beliefs are to your child who's Baptist? And so we're looking at that. What happens? We have a lot of people who did not believe in religion in the school. They believe in religion, but not necessarily that school wasn't that place. Public school wasn't that place to do that. As a result of that, the separation. Two things were happening when this rule passed. You had to take God out of the school in the early 60s, I think around 1963, something like that, in the state of New York, in the city of New York, the parents sued to have that taken out. Supreme Court said, yes, you're right. So we took it out then. Then the second thing was happening was a lot of desegregations of schools. So now we have most of us in the 60s were part of some kind of Baptist organization, some kind of Sunday belief church, and how we worship is different from the people we saw in the classroom worshiping. That, I guarantee you, that lawsuit did not come from a Black man with a predominantly Black school, if you follow my lead, because we know that God is the glue. We know God is the foundation in which we walk. So we won't necessarily get that argument. One of the other things is that private schools just multiplied by the thousands across America, because now they could separate the schools. They could separate and take their predominantly white population and go to a private school where they can create their own rules, speak about God, and then they can raise the standard on who gets in and who gets out. And so you have to make sure. So that's happening. Over in Ireland right now, as you and I speak today, the Supreme, I don't know if they call it the Supreme Court, but the supreme body of law over in Ireland, there's a parent, a white female, challenging their Supreme Court to take religion out of their public school setting in Ireland. And she's trying to mirror what the United States did 50 years ago. And so they say they don't know where it works because Ireland is based off of Catholicism. It's based on the Catholic beliefs. And so there are some pros and cons on it, but it was just amazing that it's still happening. But you cannot stop a school. You cannot stop a school. If students want to do an initiated or student prayer, student-led or student group, you cannot stop the students from doing that. But Dr. Epps I cannot lead out and start putting my personal religious beliefs upon the students. So it has its pros and it has its cons as well. And you have to look at it from both angles, because right now so many people have some views on how they walk and how they see Christ and how they believe they worship. Because I always say people do as they see their gods, as they see God. And so if you serve a weak God, a God of the wood or the God of the television or a God of social media, then that's what you're going to do with your time. So it has its pros and cons. It has its pros and cons.
And you know, you are so multitask. You are so busy. You are into so many different hats. We didn't cover all your hats, but you are available for motivational speaking, for training businesses and companies. I believe some ministry is somewhere in there.
Oh, it's definitely in there. It's still in there.
You're available to present yourself before a group of people.
Yes, ma'am.
If people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
It's very simple. I keep my email static. It's been the same one. It's just elvisepps@gmail.com. Send me or hook up with me on LinkedIn or my Twitter account, which is, at Elvis Epps. But LinkedIn is a way. I look at LinkedIn every day. I'm not a big fan. I'm not on the Facebook account. I don't want to get so spread out with all these social media outlets that I have to keep checking 4, 5, or 6. not me. But my email is an easy way to get me. It's elvisepps@gmail.com. And just say hi. Thank you for an outstanding program. I'd love for you to come and speak to our young men. The men ministry have been very involved with men ministry. Even Christians who are going into the military. Is this a war? Is this a military that Christians should be in? And that's what I help out at the local church, because I have 12 years in the military, and I can honestly tell you there are some things happening that parents and community leaders would be shocked, appalled, and just not happy with once they understand the picture, not the boot camp, not the people up front, but the real mission behind going into the military. So a lot of things with our young men, our young boys, and leadership trainings like that, those things are possible. How to discover your strengths, understand your core values, strategic planning, organizing, to make sure if you want to do some kind of evangelistic crusade, or you just got a new pastor and you want to outline what you want to do to move forward for a 3 to 5 year plan, that's where I can come in and definitely help. And so it's my calling, it's my mission. I always look forward to doing those things.
And Elvis.
Yes, ma'am.
You are on the Truth Will Set You Free show. Give us a truth to remember you by.
One of the things is that God's has given me the strength to do so many things. I would never put that second. In Matthew 6:33 it says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and His righteousness shall be added unto you." You have to make sure that you do that. Step one. When I was younger, that used to be my step 3 or 4. But make sure that you put God first in all you do. Seek the truth and be honest when the truth comes, because it may not come the way you expect, but it's going to come. And don't see it as a setback. See it as a reflection or the door that's closed in the area where God wants you to go. It's not a setback. It's not an upset. It's not a disappointment. It's grooming you for the next step, because God has something bigger for you, and the truth will set you free if you're truthful with yourself.
Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you so much.
You know you can come back anytime.
Hey, you call me. I'm just a click away.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.